All right. So our room is open. We are recording this session, as you just heard. And I just want to make sure people are flooding in. And yes, they are. So we have not started anything just yet. So please come in, get comfortable, get yourself set up, and we will be getting started in just another minute or two once we see that everybody has escaped the waiting room. So thank you for hanging out in there as our panel got themselves situated and set up and are ready for today's session. My name is Mike. I'm with Clear Admit, and I'll be moderating today's session. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a few minutes. For the most part, we are here to talk about the schools and the programs that they offer. So I will just be kind of the switchboard operator, moving between school to school, not talking too much about ourselves, which is great. I do want to welcome everybody who has joined us. As you are entering the room, if you don't mind, jump to the chat and let us know where you're joining us from today. You can let us know the school you're attending or the country that you're from, whatever you're most comfortable with doing. It's just fun to kind of see where people are located because this is a virtual event. So people could be joining from all across the world. And it is always kind of cool to see if we kind of kept somebody up all night, or if they woke up super early, or if they're having lunch with us, or kind of where folks are within their day, night, evening, afternoon, whatever that may be. I see a few Michigan folks already, which is great.
Yes,
So,
down the road from me. Hi, everybody.
my gosh, all kinds of Michigan. Look at this. This is like we're spanning the network of U of M. This is pretty cool. I guess you have to, right? When you're celebrating, more Michigan, when you're celebrating like a huge, I don't know, like sports victory. I don't know if anything happened this past weekend. Maybe there's some reasons why they may be happy.
Those
There
are some
is,
big words, Mike. You're throwing out some big
I'm
words.
just saying, well, no one so far has said they're from the red school that's a
I
stripe.
know.
So I'm not offending anybody that I know of yet. So
No, I don't
um,
think any offense. I think that I think the bigger thing will be what's happening this weekend. So whether or not any friends are from Iowa, let's see how that goes.
let's see how that goes. That is correct. And Harbaugh is back. So all good stuff. All right. So I digress. We will get this thing started. So again, my name is Mike. I'm with Clear Admit. This is an event all about masters in management programs. You will see a lot of different terminology for masters in management. You'll see things like Master of Science in Management, Masters in Leadership. There's a lot of different kind of comparable programs. So we're going to use the term Masters in Management, or MIM, today for the purposes of this session. But keep in mind, when you're researching these programs at many different schools, they may be labeled slightly differently. So I just want to kind of preface that as we jump in and get started. This is just my face, which you're already seeing. And again, I'm from Clear Admit. Let's jump into the rest of our panel and introduce them as we go. So we'll start in alphabetical order by school. So first we have Dunya Corey, who is an assistant director with for MS admissions at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming and joining us today. Next, we have Noah Ward, the Assistant Director of Admissions and Recruitment from Chicago Booth's School of Business.
Hey, Mike, good to be here with you all today and great to meet all of you students. I'm excited to get to chat and share a bit about our program.
Awesome. Thank you, Noah, for being here as well. And last but definitely not least, we have Julia Huffer, Director of Admissions and Recruitment for the Ross one-year master's programs at Michigan Ross. Welcome, Julia.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And glad to be here with you today.
Love the line. I use it myself a lot in the chat. I did not today, so I appreciate that you said it for me. That's awesome. And so right away, we want to get things started. For our attendees, just a couple of notes as we get started with today's session. We took questions from you all during the registration for this event, and we took some of those questions and inserted them into today's agenda. So there is no need to ask additional questions today in the session. You can sit back and relax and know that the most popular questions will be asked of our panel and covered today. The session's also being recorded. So if you are somebody who, is doing a couple different things at the same time or wants to take notes and really review the session, relax and enjoy it for today, and we will send you the link to the video. You can review it as many times as you would like, okay? So this first question, kind of the basic starting point, right? Like, what are these programs? What is a master's in management? Who is it really for? And then what can these graduates do after graduating in terms of career placements or prospects? So Dunya, we will start this session with you. What do you think of these questions and what advice can you provide?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So a master's in management is really for students looking for kind of those foundational skills in business management. Maybe not something that they've done previously in their undergrad, but either looking to pivot into something more management or business related in the future. Typically, these programs are for students who are kind of new to the workforce, so maybe 0 to 2 years of work experience. Seniors in undergrad are typically looking and ready to apply, so not a whole lot of work experience, maybe strong internships. And then typically after graduating, we would anticipate these students are going into some career paths like consulting, entrepreneurship, finance services, healthcare, manufacturing. There's a wide range, so it's nice that it's kind of broad, but still giving those foundational skills in terms of business and future prospects.
It's awesome, a great answer. And Julie or Noah, anything else that you want to add? I mean, Dunya covered a really good section of this question. I'm not seeing anybody jumping off, so yeah, I'll just add. I mean, I think it's great to have these types of programs available for people who are coming out of their undergrad. It gives you a nice additional option for something to give you those business skills, the business foundations. A lot of times for folks who maybe came from like a liberal arts major or a non-business background to really kind of pivot and get those skills as they go. And lots of different options for when you graduate as well. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Can I add something, Mike, before we jump through?
Yeah.
So I think what you brought up was actually a really important point, which is that it is very specifically not for business majors. So you are going to have a wide variety of backgrounds. And a lot of times we talk about with our students, the idea of putting that business skill set on top of the expertise from your undergraduate to potentially leverage that expertise in an area within that after graduation. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say that this is not a business majors background degree program.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you for underlining that point. That is, yes, good stuff. So no, we're going to jump to you. If you can walk us through kind of the curriculum, right? So what can someone expect when they enter this type of a program? What are the subjects that are covered? You could see the rest here, like electives, are there majors? Like kind of just give us like the bird's eye view of what this thing looks like.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I'd be happy to. And I think that it's a very interesting degree to be able to go into. They're often very short. It's like our program is a 10-month program. I think that's pretty standard for most U.S. Masters in Management programs. Some might be slightly longer, slightly shorter, but you're really looking at just under a year for most of these programs, which means that it's kind of a quick pace. You aren't going to be diving in super deep to a lot of different topics, but rather you're going to be getting some good foundational knowledge in a number of different areas. As kind of Dunya highlighted, it's sort of an introduction to business, right? Oftentimes, as Julia stated, for individuals from non-business backgrounds. And so the subjects that you're going to be covering throughout kind of your 10 months in a program like this, many of us require you to take a class in economics, a course in finance or accounting, a course in analytics or maybe statistics, and then of course some leadership/management courses often make up the foundation or core of many of our degree programs. Additionally, there are, of course, electives. Some of these can vary, though. Some programs, I think, such as the University of Michigan, has quite a bit of electives for you to be able to take. Whereas programs like Tepper as well as Booth have areas of specialization for you to focus in, things such as entrepreneurship or data analytics or whatever it may be that you're interested in that you spend more time in, and you have a couple of extra electives. Many of these electives can often be taken with MBA students depending on the particular program that you're looking at, and it provides you a chance to establish, oftentimes at the beginning of the degree, usually in the first quarter or semester, a strong foundation in the business skills and in your master's in management community. And then as you go along in the program, you're introduced to more complex ideas, given more flexibility and opportunities to engage with other students throughout the business program. And so that provides really great opportunities to learn, develop a good sense of community in your program, but also get exposure to the wider business communities that many of our schools have to offer.
Yeah, it sounds great. And it's nice too that you don't jump right into the tougher courses immediately necessarily, right? You kind of have those intro core classes to kind of get your feet wet. So if you haven't taken those business courses before, which again, many people would not have unless you took it as like an elective towards a liberal arts major, possibly, that kind of gives you that baseline to move forward with. Awesome stuff. Any other comments or thoughts on this section? Not just yet. Awesome. So we'll move into the third question here. And Julia, you can kick this one off. What are you looking for when reviewing applications for a Master of Management program? What are the characteristics of a competitive applicant, right? So not only what are you looking for in general, but who gets in and kind of what do those people look like?
So I think that this is always an interesting question to have to grapple with, because I think a lot of us feel that there's some magic handshake that gets you into these types of programs or other types of programs. And I promise you that Noah, Dunya, and myself, all of us know that it's a very comprehensive review when we are looking at our various applicants. So in general, what I talk about with students is that we want to see that you have the potential to be reasonably challenged by the curriculum that you are going to be undertaking. And what I mean by that is that you will neither be bored, nor will you be so in over your head that you won't ultimately be successful. That's not to say that it's going to be a walk in the park, but that the idea is that you will be challenged and you will be in a space where you are able to grow. So obviously, what does that mean? We look at your academics. We look at your resume, what you have been up to. We look at how you write about yourself and what we ask specifically for in essay questions. And then for us, and I'm sure for others, I would love to hear what Noah and Dunya offer as well, but we also ask for one letter of recommendation, and we look at that all together as one big whole. And so what I would say to that is that there is not one part that supersedes or preempts another part. It's an entire look. And then for our process, what we then also do is we offer admissions interviews to students that we are interested in considering further. And the reason for that, among many, is that someone can look amazing on paper, but how are you going to function in a cohort team environment? This type of degree program, a business type of degree program, is one where you are actively working with your colleagues every single day. And so what type of person are you going to be in that setting? Are you going to be able to do that and really manage that? That sort of leads into the characteristics of quote unquote competitive applicants. Academically sound, or at least showing potential for academic sound. And then on top of that, people who will engage and take part in their community. Each of those schools that are represented here have an incredible amount of resources that will be at the fingertips of the students. And the goal is that, and I know this is a catchphrase, I despise catchphrases, but here it comes. We want you to come in with a growth mindset. It is 10 months of time. That is a relatively short drop in the bucket of your life. And yet you will have this incredible variety of opportunities facing you. And what we want is for you to take the opportunities that are going to put you in your best light when you finish the program and enter into the workforce. That's what I got, Mike.
No, I think that sounds great. I mean, I think that last point, especially the 10 months kind of springboard into your next phase of life. I mean, it really is. It'll come at you like a fire hose at certain points, but the outcomes, I mean, it's well worth it. And the things that you'll experience while you're there, and you get to stay in school another year. So like, why not? Like, it's great to be in school. There's a lot of fun things about being back in school. And another thing that we always hear too, and I'll ask for everyone to either like nod or be like, no way, you're wrong. When we always talk to admissions representatives for any events that we do, for all the different programs we cover, we always ask them, are you reading to deny or are you reading to admit, right? So we hear a lot of applicants think that, oh, they're just going through with a red pen and crossing everything off and they can't wait to deny me. But the admissions reps always say to us, we're reading to admit people. Like, we want to find people fit our program and get them in. So I'm seeing Noah with a nod. Everyone's yeah, that seems to be the case.
Well, I would also add to that, Mike, we get excited when we read an application of somebody who is especially strong. I am exchanging G-chats with my colleagues all of the time when we're reading apps to say, I just read a spectacular application. It was so refreshing. And we are constantly excited by the students and the applications that we are reading. The goal is to provide opportunity where it is possible and appropriate, and certainly not to exclude.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. I just wanted to add on a bit to what Julie was saying before
Yeah.
about kind of the things that we look for in applicants, and something that I always really value in it. And in truth, it's a very vain thing because business schools are very vain. But we want to hear why you're interested in our program, right? Not why you're interested in just a master's in management from any university whatsoever. But what about our program specifically interests you? And so we love to hear about what about the curriculum, the student life. What about the location? What about the whatever thing it is that is available to through our programs? What is it about our program that really stands out for you? And that really shows us, one, that you've kind of done the research and that you've been engaged and are actually really committed to wanting to go down this process, because these are fast-paced programs. They can be challenging, and they're going to be a huge space for growth. And so the more bought in you are to that, the more compelling it's going to be for me as a reader to be able to affirm that. So I imagine that might be true for Dunya and Julia from y'all's university's perspective. But that's something I always like to highlight is, the more that you can articulate why you're interested in the particular university that you're interested in, the better off you'll be. And yeah, I had one other thought that I was going to add on to that, but now I'm blanking on it. So I'll go ahead and hand it over.
I think to highlight what you just said, Noah, I honestly don't think I lens it quite that way, but what I do really relate to and what you stated is you can tell when somebody has done zero research on the program. And you are looking to make a huge investment of time and resources of all types. It's really important to have done that research to make sure that when you're looking at a city like Chicago, that that's your vibe. And that's the type of scenario you'd like to put yourself in. You can tell the people that are just, casting out a wide net and not really specific to the degree program or the school. Sometimes they forget to edit their essays and submit, the ones for Harvard Business School to me. I appreciate that, but that's not who I read for. But I think just really having a deep sense of self and your purpose and why, if that comes through along with some decent research, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with both of you on that, and also add in, we offer a lot of opportunities for not only researching on the website, but visiting campus, whether virtually or in person. So again, some people don't edit the things or just don't know where the school is located. So, I get a lot of, Philadelphia, and we're in Pittsburgh. And so it's just a very interesting thing to read and see. So just kind of putting in that effort to see and know, like Julia shared about the vibe and the city, and if that's something that's also going to fit for you.
Lots of great points. Awesome stuff. Thank you all for throwing some answers onto this question. And we'll move into what we like to call the lightning round, just because it's fun to have a lightning round, I think. But we're going to go through each of you individually, and you can answer all three questions at the same time. But this is your chance to kind of talk about your program, your school, and what you're offering to applicants and potential students who will join your program. So I'll read them off one time here, and we'll go around. And Dunya, we'll start with you to go first. But the first question: who's eligible to apply to the degree program? And we asked this here. I know we asked it earlier, but it is slightly different at each school. So we just want to make sure we kind of nail that down. What are you looking for at Tepper specifically? Secondly, in your opinion, what's one highlight of the student experience? The programs may be new here as well. So this could be also opened up to just, what's a highlight of being at your college campus? So I'll save you on that. And then the third one, how can career coaching work in the program, and where will the recruiting process fit? Hopefully that stuff also should be, pretty straightforward. So Dunya, we'll start with you and take it away.
All right, perfect. So our program, our inaugural cohort is going to be this coming fall, so fall of 24. But who's eligible to apply? Again, we're looking for students, seniors right out of undergrad, or anyone with 0 to 2 years of work experience. We're also really looking for people who are coming without a business background. So liberal arts, humanities, anything that's really not business in their undergrad, because this is providing those foundational skills for that and for a potential pivot into a different career, or just kind of opening the door to different opportunities. I'll talk about this a little more later, but it also is going to be an open door to a potential MBA down the line that could be accelerated. So basically anyone who does not have a business background and is fresh to the workforce or right out of undergrad. One highlight about the student experience for our MSM program is going to be that there's cross-disciplinary opportunities. So while a lot of the classes are going to be business focused in the Tepper School of Business, you're also going to have the opportunity to take a course, let's say in machine learning or some other interest that you might have across CMU's campus, which is really nice, and also engage in some of the clubs that are also open to our MBA, MSBA, and other master's business students to really kind of engage with them and collaborate in that regard as well. And then how does career coaching function? So you are assigned a career coach from the day you're admitted. So prior to even getting on campus, you'll be working with a coach. There are recruitment events, there are recruitment fairs, resume reviews, networking opportunities. So career coaching, we have a wonderful Master's Career Center, and they do a lot of work. And I just always highlight that it's 50-50. So students also need to be putting in quite a bit of work to make sure that they're getting out what they put in and what they hope to have afterwards.
That's great. One little quick thought, and this may not be figured out yet, right? But you mentioned in that second section, you can do some cross-disciplinary things. Will that come into play with specializations as well, or are those going to be kind of preset?
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. I forgot to mention, we do have 5 specializations that we will be highlighting for this program. So finance, marketing, operations, strategy, and entrepreneurship are our 5 specializations that students can focus in on. So that will kind of come more with the electives, and that cross-disciplinary learning can be a part of those electives, most likely towards the end of the year after most of the core and foundational classes are taken care of.
It's awesome. Sounds like a great idea, especially at a school like Tepper, where there are a lot of really cool majors and programs around the university there. So a school like Carnegie Mellon, I should say. Obviously Tepper is the business school, so taking another Tepper class would be taking the same type of class. Okay, so awesome. Thank you for highlighting all that stuff. Sounds like a great program. And can't wait to get it all kicked off with you all in the fall. All right, so now we'll move over to Noah over at Chicago Booth. Same 3 questions, take us through everything, realizing as well, this is another new program. So, if anything's not completely fleshed out, just let us know and we can always follow up in the spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been working hard to be able to fill out all these kind of different ideas. So I hope that I will have all of the answers to the questions that are asked. And if we don't, I'll certainly get back to you with more answers in the future. But to start off with who is eligible for the program, anyone who graduated between the spring of 2022 and the spring/summer of 2024 is eligible for this program. So within that 2-year span, if you're about to graduate from college, great, you are eligible. If you graduated a year or 2 ago, that's fine too. Both individuals are welcome. The one caveat is that we are, like Julia and Dunya highlighted, for non-business students, specifically anybody with a non-Bachelor of Business Administration degree. And so we've gotten a lot of questions about what exactly non-business means for us. And so we have drawn the line at, if you have a Bachelor of Business Administration degree, you won't qualify for this program. And that's because a lot of it would be review for you. And so for those individuals who don't have that particular background, you can come in and join our class. When it comes to what I think is a real highlight of our program, I'll note that, the Masters in Management program will be housed in our Gleacher Center, which is in the downtown Chicago, just off the river at River North, a very active business, economic, entertainment district of the city, just off the lake and the river. It's gorgeous. And I'm actually there right now. I enjoy working over here. And it will just provide you so many opportunities to engage with, that oftentimes most of our MBA students live within the area. It'll provide you the chance to live in the heart of one of the largest cities in the United States. You're just a 15-minute train ride from the Cubs Stadium, which is owned by a Booth alumni. You're a 15-minute drive to Soldier Field, where we often have Taylor Swift performing. And so there will be so many great opportunities, not just to learn and engage with your fellow Booth and University of Chicago students, but as well as the larger culture and environment of this very large and very exciting city. And kind of rounding off that idea, I think that there will also be lots of opportunities for you to join us at our Hyde Park campus, which you can see kind of right behind me here. Where you'll be connecting with other University of Chicago grad students in our other master's programs. And so there will be lots of intramural events that you can participate in and student organizations. So lots of ways to feel like you develop a strong sense of community, even in the short time span like the Master's in Management program is in. And then lastly, how does career coaching function? Always a big question with Master's in Management students. How am I going to be employed after this? A very valid question to be asking. Well, for us, how it works is kind of a couple of different steps. First off, it is within the classroom. We have a career readiness curriculum that begins during orientation and will carry you through many of your different quarters. Then it carries on into sort of your different areas of specialization from a curriculum perspective. We have 5 areas of specialization within marketing, finance, entrepreneurship, data analytics, and I'm slipping on the last one. I think it's consumer behavioral science. So different areas for you to focus in and examine. And within those spaces, we will have career coaches, usually groups of like 10 with a career coach. And so you'll work with your colleagues as well as a career coach to try and find different jobs that interest you, areas of interest, things of that nature. And then our larger career service team will work with you on kind of 2 different sort of routes to recruit. One is pipeline recruiting, which are the recruiting experiences that you expect to understand, the Deloitte's, the Goldman Sachs that come, visit, host events, and hire a lot of students. And then the other one is network or boutique recruiting, which is, if you're looking to get in at a startup or a smaller organization that doesn't often hire from these spaces, we work with you to find the network connections from your undergraduate institution as well as Booth to get those alumni contacts so that you can start to develop connections within that space to empower your overall recruitment process. So that's sort of how we work with you. Recruitment begins basically whenever you come to campus. So whenever you step your foot into the Gleacher Center here in a couple months, you will basically start the recruiting process. So it's an exciting, a fast-paced time, but we're very proud of the work we've done to develop a very robust curriculum for you.
Thank you, Noah, for that. And only because you mentioned it, I have to ask the question. I mean, Harvard's offering a course on Taylor Swift. So will the Chicago Booth MIM program be offering a Taylor Swift elective course?
That's a tremendous question there, Mike. And what I can say is that I would sure hope so. I will definitely be in contact now with some of our folks, particularly in the marketing space. I think Taylor can hardly be compared whenever it comes to any sort of artist when it comes to her marketing skills. So that could be a great area to venture out into. I hope so in the future.
Consumer behavior. I mean, it fits in a couple of those elective areas, I think. So something to consider. I mean, it could be the new highlight of the program. I don't know. We'll have to see. All right. So thank you for that and for providing some answers there as well. Sounds awesome to be able to go to Booth. Julia, for Michigan Ross, give us some of the highlights of your program as well and take us through these three questions.
Gladly. I mean, I have to continue the Taylor thread because I got the joy of taking my 13-year-old to the concert at Ford Field in Detroit. So we're big fans here in my house. So in terms of the eligibility to apply for the degree program, echoing many similar sentiments to what Noah and Dunya said, what I will add to that is that we do a little bit more deep dive into what the business part of that means for a non-business background, because we do find that there are some other titles of degree programs, but whether it be a Bachelor of Commerce or otherwise, where we need to kind of take a deeper look. And the point of that is exactly what was stated before. We don't want you to replicate what you have already taken. That is not the goal of a program like this. So the eligibility is basic non-business degree folks from their undergraduate who are 0 to 2 years post their undergraduate degree. That's where we start with that. Then if I were to highlight perhaps one of my favorite parts of this particular program, it would without a doubt have to be the consulting studio that we do. So in the final semester, students in the Master of Management program complete a Master of Management Consulting Studio, which is tied to a course. And what happens is that we source projects and issues from companies in and around Michigan, as well as the United States, and sometimes if we're lucky, internationally as well. And students will hear about these projects, listen to what is being presented to them in terms of what they would like them to answer, if you will. And then from there are ultimately placed in groups with each other to work with that company on the particular project at hand. And really what I love about this is that it takes everything that the students have been learning, their skill set, and bringing it into one of the attributes or perhaps one of the values that we really talk a lot about at Michigan Ross, which is action-based learning. The idea is to take what you have been doing and put it in a very real life, real world scenario. The career coaching, without a doubt, is also one of my favorite aspects, and something that I talk a lot about, especially in the admissions interviews that I conduct. The Career Development Office is an incredible suite of resources and opportunities for students. And how it works is actually it starts before students start the program. So prior to students coming in the summer, there are intake appointments with a career coach. And what these intake appointments do is set the stage in terms of what the students can expect moving forward, and also to understand what the students are looking for and what their hopes are for their potential career outcomes. Then during the summer, when students begin their program, during our first orientation sort of week that students have, there are some recruiting workshops, and then more recruiting workshops that are threaded throughout that first summer semester. And the goal of those are to prep students for the recruiting season that usually starts in the fall. And through that, there are on-campus recruiting opportunities, which is where companies directly look to recruit Ross students, and students apply for those opportunities through the Ross Career Development Office. And then also students may be doing their own self-directed off-campus recruiting, as we call it. I keep on doing air quotes today. I'm going to start with the air quotes. Students will do also off-campus recruiting opportunities, which is basically where they're looking at other jobs as well, in addition to what might be offered at Ross. Throughout that time, we are also having, again, skills-based workshops. None of us love to write a cover letter, but we have to a lot of times. And we need to check out our resumes, think about what we're doing with the information that we are sharing with our potential employers. We are very lucky at the University of Michigan, as well at the Ross School of Business, that we have the largest living alumni network. And we also have very active and engaged alumni. So some of the events too are tied to alumni who come back to talk with students and mentor students. Also opportunities for students to network, as well as be directly in touch with industry partners as well. So much as has been echoed before, the Ross Career Development Office resources are open for students and there for them to take advantage of. It is not necessarily mandated that students do so, but to not do so would be to miss out on a huge opportunity, and something that I wish we all had. Students also have one-on-one career coaching throughout their time as well. So there's really a personal touch to it, and also opportunities to have really honest conversations about what to expect career-wise and how things are looking in the economy and in the industry. So these are robust resources that I hope students take full advantage of.
Great stuff again. I mean, these are three fantastic programs. Tough for me to decide. I mean, they're all great. I don't know how you pick one. This is making it harder and harder as you hear all these awesome things. And the highlights you pointed out too, I mean, that consulting project, I forget what you call it, consulting something, but
Studio. It's called
consulting
the studio.
That's right. Consulting studio. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, that just sounds like a good time. So great learning experience there. Awesome stuff. So now we'll move into the next section of our event here, where we're going to populate our screen with the pre-submitted questions from our audience. So these are things that were asked during registration, and we picked the most popular, I think, 6 questions that we have coming up next. And we want to just go around again to each of you to kind of kick off a question. If there's any differences in a response that you want to add to that, just let me know. And we'll kick this first question off with Dunya. If you are deciding, because you may fit the criteria to apply to the Master's of Management program, a deferred MBA, or waiting a bit to do a traditional MBA, what would you say to that person? Like, how can they pick between these programs, and what do you think would make the most sense for them?
Sure. I think between the Master's in Management, I think that's one thing, and then the deferred MBA and a traditional MBA. is another. So with the master's in management, again, reiterating that's a non-business background, a non-business undergrad degree. So if you're looking to pivot into business, fresh out of undergrad, few years of work experience at most, and again, do not have an undergrad in business, the master's in management is probably your route. That does open the door to potentially doing a deferred MBA or a traditional MBA later on. So getting that, and then maybe if you want to work for a few years and then come back, you could do an accelerated MBA program with us. So that would be that route. For deferred MBA, you maybe have a business background, but recognize that you want to get a few years of work experience under your belt, or had an internship and got a job offer and don't want to turn that down and stay in school a little longer. So sometimes they'll kind of work with their companies or work with the school to do that deferred MBA. So you apply for that with kind of saving your seat essentially for coming back for that MBA in 2 to 4 years typically. But again, that's someone with business background, has and is looking to kind of further that with that master's in business administration. And then the traditional MBA, often students come in with about an average of 3 to 5 years of work experience. They're looking to either specialize, pivot, or just kind of further their skill set in business. Maybe it's something that the company is looking for, maybe it's some kind of promotion, things like that. And then with our MBA program, there's different tracks and concentrations. So it might be a matter of, you know, I focused a lot on finance and I want to jump into entrepreneurship a little bit more. So things like that. So it's really kind of the ages differ a little bit, the point of life, I guess, that you're in. So master's in management and deferred MBA are typically those students who are kind of coming right out of undergrad with not a lot of work experience quite yet. And then MBA is really when you've got a few years under your belt and hoping to further that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you highlighted the most important pieces. I mean, some people aren't eligible for all 3 options, right? So they could be deciding for you. And the other piece too is like if life could determine some of this as well, right? So if you do, I think you mentioned, you know, you had an internship, you take a job offer, you know, maybe that's your route. Like you're going to go do that first instead of doing the master's in management or an MS in management first. I think another couple things too is like the timing of the programs, right? Like MBAs are typically a little longer than a year, unless you do an accelerated one, whereas a master in management is typically under a year. So that could affect things. And then the pricing of these programs is affected by that same exact situation. 2-year MBA is going to cost more because you're there for 2 years. So that could affect things as well. And I think, we may get to this later also, but the outcomes are not too far apart. Like you can get to similar roles eventually in your career. Kind of your starting and ending point might be a little different as you look at the 2 program types. But, you know, as we mentioned at the beginning of this session, like you can go into a master's in management and get into many different roles at many different industries, just like you could from an MBA. So, you know, I think there's a lot of things to consider. And that's why the folks who are here today joining this type of a session, you'll make a more informed choice when you have these things in front of you. So awesome stuff there. We'll move on to Noah now for this second question. When it comes to letters of recommendation, when you're applying to your program, should they be going to professors or faculty members, or should they be going towards maybe, you know, industry folks, like maybe from an internship or a job that they may have had prior to joining your program?
Really good question. I definitely think that that's an important one. It often can vary a bit from school to school. So it's definitely something you want to do your research on, ask around and all that sort of stuff. For Booth specifically, we require 2 letters of recommendation, at least one from an academic source. And so you want at least one of those to come from a professor, but that second one is available to come from an internship supervisor or another professor, or maybe a student org sponsor, part-time job, whatever it may be. And I think that most of the programs will probably ask for you to at least submit one from a academic source. And I think that's largely because this is an academic program, right? Feel free to shake your head, nod, whatever, Julia, Dunya, if that is correct. But I believe that that is pretty standard, that the academic letter of recommendation is what we're going to be looking for.
I want to say no to that only because I since we only require one, we can, we do flex it, and we strongly suggest professor or somebody who's worked with you in a professional capacity in a supervisory scenario. I know it sounds crazy, but we've all seen it. We've had parents write letters of recommendation. We've had friends write letters of recommendation. So we really very specifically, the only sort of absolute is we do not want a personal letter of recommendation. We have a fair amount of students that come from situations where they have spent a significant time being a Division I athlete. So it's not uncommon for us to see coaches perhaps put in a letter of recommendation because they've worked extensively with this person and have a lot of abilities to talk about character, but we do not require an academic source only. We kind of open it up as long as it's not personal. Please don't give me personal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that to emphasize a bit of what Julie's saying, it always at least needs to come from someone who is in a position of authority kind of over you. So whether that is a professor, a internship supervisor, someone who is seeing you kind of in that sort of relationship and can attest to your qualities outside, whether it be academic or, like your teamwork skills, all those sort of things are really valuable things that we look for within the letter of recommendation. And while we would, it's great that, your friend is supportive of you or your parents supportive of you, those aren't exactly the sources of the information that we're looking for. I will add on to that we don't look and care as much about the title necessarily of the person. So whether or not they're the assistant director at the company or the CEO, that's not what we're really looking for, but we're looking for the quality of the information that they're providing. And so if you have a choice between somebody who directly was overseeing you and somebody who you maybe had copy with one time, always choose the person who has had more interactions with you and who has seen you in more specific circumstances. So if that's the professor you've taken 2 or 3 courses with, rather than the one that you saw on a panel, definitely go with that one. If that's the coach that usually the assistant coach that you interacted with a lot, go with that one over the coach that you may not have. If it's the internship supervisor that is a little bit lower level compared to the director, go with that individual. So always go with the person who can most accurately attest to their experiences with you.
Awesome advice. Thank you both for that. I think that's really good to hear. So, college roommate, we'll just cross that off the list, right? Like that's not, that's not approved.
Mike, you can have one from a college roommate.
Oh, thank you. All right, great. So you know what? Let me uncross that out. I'll white out my cross out. Awesome stuff. So next, Julia, we'll go to you for this one. When it comes to the admissions process for your program, how important are extracurricular activities versus everything else that's in the application, right? So scores and internships specifically. This person also wrote on further, I studied really hard, had great experiences, but I don't have a lot of leadership position on campus. So how much is that going to hurt their application?
Awesome. They are extracurricular activities, and which we sort of couple in with the resume, are part of the application review, but they are certainly not, I would not put them above or below any other portion of the application that we are reviewing. I think it's very common for us to fixate on something that we're super worried that is going to be the thing that will make us inadmissible. And that's not really the way that it works. We look, again, I'm bringing out all of the catchphrases today, but I promise it's true. We really do a holistic admissions review process. Every single one of the panelists on here, I can promise you, does exactly that. And I think that it's wonderful that you've studied hard and you've had great summer experiences, and we're going to see that. If you don't have a lot of leadership, we're going to see that as well. But perhaps you have within your extracurricular activities, maybe you haven't been the vice president or the president, but have you stayed with them for longer than a semester? Have you been consistent in being active in your community or your campus? We really value those aspects as well. We are not looking in any way, shape, or form in our application process for perfection. We are looking for progress, we're looking for potential, and we are looking to find somebody who we think will grow within the program. So I know I'm somewhat sidestepping the question, but the part of it is because I can promise you one thing does not outweigh another thing in the application process. There's a reason why we put everything in the application that we do, because we look at absolutely everything and nothing is superfluous. So I hope that resonates with you, Noah and Dunya. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well if you have others.
Yeah, to throw out another kind of cliche, I've never seen a perfect application, right? There's no application where it's just like all the way down the line, it's like this person's absolutely has no areas of growth, because at that point, they probably wouldn't need a master's program from our place. And so certainly, if you feel like there's a weakness in your application, whether that's extracurriculars or maybe it's your academics, maybe it's internships, maybe it's, whatever it may be, look to see, well, how can I strengthen that in other places within the application? Because often there are things that you simply can't move. Your GMAT or GRE score is probably going to be what it is. Your grades up to this point are probably already pretty well set. The internships that you have, maybe you can fit in one more, but you can't get that many. So look for the things that you can control, the essays that you can control. Look for finding really good letter of recommendation writers, sitting down, chatting with them, doing those sort of things that are within your area, and strengthen your strengths, because that can often make you stand out and be a very unique candidate. Certainly, extracurriculars are one of the many valuable things that we look for within a candidate. But if you are lacking in any one area, you can usually find another area to start to strengthen.
And I would add to that, Noah, I think you've stated that beautifully. And what I would also say is that if there is an area of your application that has a flag or a potential red flag, please know that we're going to see it. And take the opportunities where you can if you need to address that. We very specifically put in an optional essay portion where students can share with us anything that they think would be relevant to the review of their application. If you tanked in a semester, if something really obvious went on academically, we're going to see it. So maybe talk about it, but talk about it in a way that allows us to understand how you grew and learn from that process and how you managed it. There's always a way to see things that you might sort of think of as red flags as opportunities for learning and growth. And if you can show us that, that's really impressive.
Absolutely. Yeah. All great advice here as well. I think that holistic review, you were teetering on it in that first section. It came out, but it is a true thing. And having been in these rooms reviewing applications, it certainly is the case. And I agree, there is no perfect applicant. There's also no like automatic denial applicants many times. Like there's always like something that people have. So I love the term. This is a new one I've heard from Noah, strengthen your strengths. Like I think that's a cool way to look at it. I usually just go with the more cliche, probably put your best foot forward, but I think strengthening your strengths really nails it a bit better. So awesome stuff there. So Dunya, I'm sorry, but like, we had this question and I think like your program is kind of set up to do this already. So I'm going to add to it slightly and just say, the question is, do MAM graduates ever go on to earn MBAs? But I want to add to that, like, what is the advantage of doing that, right? So your program offering that as like an accelerated option, why would that be something that people should consider, I guess? I think that may be a better way to look at this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, the MSM program by us is really set up for this. If that's the route that a student chooses, I think the benefit is, an MBA program is 2 years. Our traditional MBA program is 2 years. So being able to do that in an accelerated way lessens your time in school, lessens financially some of those costs. You're taking care of them, some of them up front, a year out of undergrad, kind of while you're still in the school mindset, really doing a bulk of the school core classes, foundational classes, things like that. And then kind of setting yourself up for success when you're going into that workforce, but then coming back, as a strong applicant for the MBA program later on, because you've already got the foundational skills from our program, you're getting some work experience, and then you're able to come in and do, an accelerated program to hopefully then at that point either pivot into a different role or get a promotion or whatever the case may be down the line, whether with the same company or not. So I think it's kind of a cool and unique way to really get into business if that isn't something that you pursued in your undergrad and you're looking to do in the future. So
yeah, I think another someone just say something. I was going to say another interesting thing to kind of add into this is like, you may not have you're not going to have a business background before entering a master in management, right? So you're already going to get some business background, but things may change in your career. So you're coming out of that, you're going to take your first role, and then maybe there's something else that interests you that you didn't even know about at the time, whether that's now like analytics or if there's a new hot subject matter that's not even out yet, right? So like 5, 10 years ago, analytics was not even really a thing. And now it's like everywhere. Maybe AI is kind of that next thing that's probably bubbling under. So coming back to go get the MBA and do a specialization in a new field could be advantageous to you as you're trying to pivot later on. So it is another tool you can use in the toolbox to kind of help you really boost that career a second time. So yeah, Dooney, everything you said makes sense. And it's great that you have that option to continue forward and do it. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? So everyone who goes, you don't have to do the MBA after. Just want to clarify that as well. Moving on. So Noah, when you complete a master management program, when it comes to job positions after the fact, how do they view graduates from that type of a program versus the MBA versus just like a regular undergrad coming out, right? So just a bachelor's degree graduate going into the workforce. And then do you know of any specific positions like there are like MBA, LDP, leadership development types of programs? Are there those types of things for MIM hires as well?
Yeah, really good question. So first off, based off of the conversation of us saying that, there's routes to accelerated MBAs, the MBA after MEM, obviously, whenever you exit a master's in management program, you're not going to be viewed as the same as like an MBA graduate, right? And effectively, how I've heard a professor explain it is that, the MEM is your foot into the business world, and the MBA is your accelerator to the top of the business world. Kind of that's a good way to think about it, I think. And so MEM is a great route to be able to be considered, much like, if not a little bit stronger than some Bachelor of Business Administration students. You'll be an individual entering, often an entry level or just above entry level type position. And from there, you'll be able to kind of build up your career with a lot of the networks and connections that many MBA students have, because they have that larger, network of alumni that they're connected to. And so it certainly puts you, I think, on a slightly more accelerated track than perhaps a traditional student just entering into a place, but you are entering at kind of a different level than an MBA student would. That being said, whenever you kind of look at the question of like, are there specific positions being hired for MIM and routes for that? Yes, there are companies that are very interested in masters in management students, but they don't have positions that are just for MIM. They're often positions that are more entry level, that they're hiring from masters in management students, that they may be hiring from masters of finance, or certain business administration programs out there. So those are sort of the ways that it works from that angle. We know that the reason why we launched the masters in management program is we were talking with a lot of alumni and other career contacts from our Booth MBA program. And many of them were saying, we love the Booth MBA talent, but we're only able to hire so many of those individuals. And we actually have a lot more entry level, lower level type positions that we want Booth talent for. And so we created this Masters of Management program to be able to meet the demand that we're hearing on that side of things. So we firmly believe that there are a lot of positions out there for these types of students.
It's perfect. And great that you already have the industry feedback. And I think the other caveat in this question also is those MBA graduates typically have a few years of experience under their belt. So the position level, it's not just the degree program that's helping them get there, it's they already have a few years of experience, which is a common thought also with people who say, oh, I found an MBA that doesn't require work experience, so I'm going to go into that and then go get an MBA level job. You're not going to get that same MBA level job that the person with 4 or 5 years of experience will get. So keep all of that in mind as well. The MIM programs are way better for you than an MBA program will be, at least for your mindset, if you have like 0 to 1 years of experience. Like that's why these programs exist. And the outcomes will be a little more direct, and those expectations will be managed a little bit better as well. So don't want to overspeak there, but that's just some common things I also hear out there. Well, I'll just go get an MBA now. It's not going to work that way necessarily. So keep that in mind. So last question that we have here on our agenda for today, and Julia, you can close us out here. What is it like outside the classroom, right? So you're an undergrad student, you're used to college now and what that is for you. When you become a grad student, what really changes, or is it kind of more of the same, or is it a different level of what you've experienced? What can you touch on there?
Sure. So I would say one of my favorite pieces of feedback I have heard from a student is somebody who, much as we talked about with these majors, they don't come from a business background. There is often a stereotype of business students and that they have gathered throughout their undergraduate career. And then they come into this program and are worried that perhaps they might not fit in with that type of stereotype or that type of business school vibe. And they honestly find the exact opposite. and they find that it is very welcoming, and there's a lot of collaboration both inside and outside of the classroom. I think because of the one-year nature of these programs and the fact that these are cohort models for us. So students who come into the program are a part of a cohort. They move through the core classes all together throughout. I think what is really shocking for a lot of students is just how important their fellow students become to them in a way that may not be echoed as much from their undergraduate life, where perhaps they were in lecture halls of 500 students. That's not the case here. The people that they are in the classroom with are also a lot of times the people they are outside of the classroom with, spending time on their group projects, doing events together, participating in clubs together. And they are often their peers, their supports, and their co-peer mentorship, if you will. I think for some people that's really surprising. I think that the field of grad school is in its own way, because of the sort of shorter accelerated nature of these programs, there's a lot riding in on this time. And so there's a little bit more focus, if you will, throughout this time. And the second part of the question here about clubs, conferences, events, the answer is yes, there's tons of that. And I think what I talk a lot with students about is, because there are so many and you have the time that you have, you really have to take some time to research and think about which activities, which clubs, which organizations might be of key interest to you, so that you have that prepped in your mind and you don't get overwhelmed by how much you can do in a shorter amount of time. Really focusing in on the things that will matter and impact you the most. I think students, I have yet to meet a senior in college who doesn't have a level of focus that they didn't have when they were a freshman. And I think that that extends a little further out into the grad program. And I think that they are in a company of people where they really share an experience together and often are really supportive and collaborative with one another.
Great response. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think I agree with you, that kind of narrowing of the lens that continues to happen from, starting high school to college senior. It's like year by year by year, you're starting to kind of figure out, like, what am I going to do as an adult? And so, yes, in a program like this, I think you really, really narrow that focus even more so. Even with a generalist degree like this one would be, management, it's pretty widespread, but you're still narrowing to, like, all right, I'm going to go do something. I want to be a manager. I want to, like, lead, right? So you're getting a nice little additional background on your resume as you do that as well. So really great stuff here. The last thing I want to put on the screen is just the application deadlines for these schools, realizing that there are a few deadlines that have already passed, but on this event, we may have underclassmen and women who have not, gotten to this stage of applying just yet. So you can see when the first dates, the round one dates, are available for you for next year, maybe off by a day or two, but generally the month will stay the same. So you can see there are upcoming deadlines for each of these programs. I will speak on behalf of the schools, and if I'm wrong with this, let me know, but the best time to apply, right, and I'll use Julia's air quotes, the best time is when your application is best. So when you've strengthened your strengths the most, did I use that right? That's when you put it in. So don't rush to do a round one application, but you're going to retake your test score and you'll update the admissions committee. Just wait for round two at that point. Put in the new higher score, and that'll be your best application. The only things you do need to be aware of with the later deadlines are that for some of these programs, there is a domestic student deadline and an international student deadline that are different and final. So make sure you're not waiting till round 5 and you're an international student and then you're ineligible. So those are the types of things to look for. Otherwise, whenever your application is optimal and you're ready to hit submit, that's the date you should target. Does anybody disagree with that? Yes, Julia, go ahead.
I just want to add, this year we have added a new point of information on our website is that we actually have put in the enrollment deposit deadline for each of these rounds as well. And the reason why we do that now is that, in addition to your point, Mike, about applying when your application is ready and at its best, also apply for the rounds and look at the enrollment deposit deadline. Because what I can't do is I can't hold your spot for 3 months out and extend your deadline. So I want you to apply also when you feel that you could reasonably make your decision by that deadline that we post.
Great point. Yes. So do that as well. And all this information is pulled off of each school's website. So if you're curious what those dates are, go to that school site, or search on whatever your search engine is, insert school name, master manager program, application deadlines. It pops right up. I just did it yesterday to pull these numbers and dates. So go and do that on your own. And I want to thank all of our panelists for a fantastic session. We have 5 more schools next week at the same time. Those schools are Duke, Emory, Georgetown, Notre Dame, and Northwestern. So if you have interest in learning from 5 additional schools, come back and join us again for a second session. You'll hear from 8 schools total at that point, and you can really get to see which program is the best fit for you, as these schools determine which of you are the best fit for them. So the fit definitely goes both ways. And once again, I just want to appreciate everyone for joining us today. This video will be live in a few days, and we will see you all very soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, morning, night, evening, and we'll see you at the next one.